Clay does this. Hey, Facebook, what's going on? Franz Borkart. Are we up? We're in the Talk 107.3 studio. We're chilling out with Clay Young and Dr. Kristie Perry. Hey, guys, what's going on?
Hey.
We're going to be talking about the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation, the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation. And we're going to let them kind of take over the show today. We've got Dr. Kristie from Southern. We've got Clay Young. Everybody knows who Clay Young is, right? I mean, everybody knows who Clay Young is. We've got, you can't see off camera, we've got Dr. Leslie Blanchard from LSU. And then we've got Judge Hunter King. And then we may or may not have Gino from the Baton Rouge Police Department. Gino's been on your show before, Brian. So, I mean, he's a regular here.
Yes, many, many times.
Yeah. Gino and I share some bad habits. We both smoke cigars. Clay, you occasionally smoke cigars. I won't say that out loud. I just said that out loud. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about this new foundation. We're going to be talking about different angles of it. This is a treat for me because normally I keep criminal justice out of the Geaux Rouge show, even though I'm a full-time criminal defense attorney. So, anyways, we're going to get started shortly. Brian, whenever you're ready, buddy. Episode 48, man. 2 more, and I get a set of steak knives. Yeah. All right, welcome to another episode of the Geaux Rouge radio show. For those listening on Facebook Live or those listening on the radio on Talk 107.3, good morning. We've got episode 48 today, and we're going to be talking to the folks from the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation. This is kind of a new thing, Brian. Brian Haldane's on Master Controls. Brian, you need to get these folks on your radio show as well, man.
Did that about a week and a half ago.
Dude.
Yeah.
Franz is behind the time, man.
Yeah. No, all good.
You're
all good.
so 1 week ago, Franz.
All good.
You're so low energy, Franz.
You're in for a treat, by the way.
So,
this is a lot more all-encompassing than I would have thought when I first had them on.
So I am in for a treat because, as you know, Brian, normally I keep my day job, my criminal law, criminal justice job. I've been in criminal justice for about 15 years now. I've been on all sides of the spectrum of the playground. I've worked for a court. I've worked as a public defender. I've worked as a prosecutor. I've been on public defender board. So it's interesting to me to have these guys in to talk. And look, the cool thing is we got LSU in the house. We've got Southern in the house. We've got Clay Young in the house. We got a judge. We may have somebody from BRPD in here. So look, before we get cracking on this episode 48, two more episodes, Brian, and I get a prize. I get a Cracker Jack prize.
You keep saying that. I don't know who's supplying this prize.
I don't know. Nobody is. 48. That's I'm almost at the year mark, man. We're going to have a party. 1-year anniversary. Maybe I'll be the only one there. I don't know. So, the Geaux Rouge Show is brought to you by the following sponsors: NAI, Ladder and Bloom, Commercial Realtors, the Smith Shanklin Sosa Personal Injury Law Firm. These guys are your go-to personal injury law firm. They don't stand on trucks. They're pretty darn good. Breck Parks, Sullivan Steakhouse, your neighborhood steak restaurant, Louisiana Tech Park, La Divina Italian Cafe, open every day with your custom made-from-scratch breakfasts. I have breakfast at La Divina probably about 4 out of the 7 days a week. Don't tell anybody that, but I do it like regularly. It's one of the best breakfasts in Baton Rouge, and it's really affordable. And last but not least, the best criminal defense law firm in the universe, the Borkart Law Firm, is a sponsor of the Geaux Rouge Show. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to welcome in Clay Young and Dr. Kristie Perry into the 107.3 studio. Guys, how's it going? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
I like the Southern attire, Doctor.
Thank you.
And then Clay, I don't know if that's coincidental or not. You're wearing kind of Southern. Well, you don't have the gold on, but
No, it's coincidental, but
it's
it's
just
okay with me.
It's just a fly Clay Young outfit. So I invited you guys in to talk about the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation. So let's start there. Clay, what is this new foundation?
It started about a year ago with conversation about supporting law enforcement agencies here in the community and maybe doing some bridge building. And I was asked into the process earlier this year to work to stand up the foundation. And we started talking about all of the things that we could do, raise money to support the agencies with equipment and technology and things of that sort. But I thought we should go further and bridge building with boots on the ground, support of what's happening in the community. And then I thought about the context of how people understand what happens with law enforcement and how some people understand what happens in poor communities. And so if you start from a position of ignorance, it's hard to get to the true solution. So let's make certain that everybody has a full understanding, both from what an officer is doing when he or she encounters someone on the streets, and then what is the perspective of people in poor community as it relates to law enforcement. So how do you do that? You present information so that everyone is informed. And what better resources are there in the region than Southern University and Louisiana State University? So they're a part of this. I'm very excited about it. And I think brick by brick, we can make a difference here.
So before we get to Dr. Perry, and I am very interested in the research component of this.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who dabbles, my big toe is in the civil rights world, mostly in criminal law, occasionally with civil rights. I guess I'll use the word police brutality or police misconduct suits. I am sensitive to this subject. You said bridge building. Explain a little bit what you mean by that.
So when you work with law enforcement officers or around them, you gain the perspective that the vast majority of officers you meet have relationships with the communities they serve. People know them in the areas that they patrol, and they have an understanding of what the attitude and the atmosphere is like in those communities. In the communities, when you're boots on the ground, you see the impact of other socioeconomic issues and how they create the reality people live in day to day, which can almost stumble you backwards into a confrontational posture with someone because of the realities. And,
Right.
and they often appear diametrically opposed, but they're not always.
Right.
So what we would like to do is have everyone understand it. I don't know if we talked about this. A couple of years ago, I was a part of a group that went into Brookstown.
Right.
And I worked with Hiller and some people to put together a group of business people, clergy, black, white, male, female, and we went into Brookstown to just walk. And people are asking, what's the goal? I said, just go meet neighbors. Once you see what's happening, once you get a perspective of what's going on there, you don't, all due respect to media, you don't believe that everybody there is the boogeyman who wants to kill you and steal your car.
Right. Empathy and understanding.
But the same goes with officers
Right.
who give their time on the weekends and in the evenings talking to kids and going to schools and being in churches, many of whom graduated from the two universities here who care about the community. So we just have to slowly present people with the information and then at least give them the option to choose to be informed.
Right. So
If that makes any sense.
no, it absolutely does. I can't. So empathy is a big part of my job. I got to understand both the perspectives of the people I represent, the people that are on the other side of the table, whether that's a victim, whether that's a prosecutor, whether that's police officers, and understanding. I don't have to always agree with it, but I have to at least understand where people are coming from.
Sure.
So that segues me into Dr. Perry. So,
Absolutely.
So talk to me about your role, and we're going to have your I don't want to say counterpart, but we're going to have LSU in the next segment.
It's kind of a counterpart. They're working together.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't say counterpart. Look, I married a Southern law school graduate, so I'm just throwing that out there. My household is a unified front. So, okay, let's talk. What is your role in this?
Well, it's very interesting. I would never forget when we got the call for the Nelson Mandela School of Public Policy to participate in this particular research. One of the things that the Center for Social Research was working on previously was a collective healing in response to all of the events that were going on in 2016, the police ambush, the Alton Sterling killing, as well as the flood. And so we was really dealing with a lot of healing in the community. And so when they brought this to our attention, I was like, this is perfect, because this kind of leads into the next direction of where we want to go. And so what we want to do is what we call a community readiness.
I like the sound of that.
Yes, community readiness assessment. It's a community-based research participatory research study. And so this gives community members the opportunity to participate in the changes that we're going to be making in the community, but it also prepares them for the changes. Just imagine you have all of these events, you have such a loose relationship with the community and police, and the police can be the perfect police department, but we have to prepare the community for the changes. And how do we do this? We have to make sure that they're involved in all of the changes that are coming forth. And that's where Southern University comes in.
So talk to me about what does it look like to prepare someone? I mean, this is a philosophical conversation we can spend hours on. How do you prepare someone for change?
Okay, so we have what we call a community readiness assessment. And so these are surveys. We have focus groups that we'll be using to look into the community and actually assess where they are at their level of readiness. Once we figure out the level of readiness that the community is, then we would build a model to develop them or prepare them for the changes based on their level. The ideal is to move the community up a level or 2 levels, or however. It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But they participated. One key factor to this is community influencers. They are a great part of this work. They will be participating. So stage 1 of our research is just to access the level of community, where they are and what level they are. Stage 2 is to prepare programmatic and boots on the ground in response to that particular level.
So when you say boots on the ground, and Clay, I'm going to encourage you to scoot your chair a little bit closer to Dr. Perry, because I'm actually looking at the video now and I can't see you in the frame.
They'd rather see her anyway.
Yeah, she is much. She is much more.
Come on.
So okay, I just want to make sure the listeners who may not be familiar, when you say boots on the ground, I know what boots on the ground means. What do you mean by that?
So it isn't just law enforcement.
Right.
There are groups in the community that are doing the work as well.
Absolutely.
And so it's and we supported some of them in our introductory press conference.
Absolutely.
So they're vetted. They have a relationship with law enforcement, but they also have trust in the communities.
Right.
So boots on the ground isn't just a military colloquialism. It's about the people who are in the trenches.
All right.
And the good thing about the Center for Social Research is that we have built a huge collaboration with the different agencies in the community. We're accustomed to going into the community, conducting focus groups, workshops, surveys, and things of that nature. We build a level of trust, and I think that's what makes us fitting for this particular project.
So who are some of the, and this may be a Clay question, who are some of the entities, individuals involved in this? We've got Southern, we've got LSU, we've got criminal justice, we've got you. Who are some of the stakeholders?
So sitting at the table, we've got business owners who are here. Also, the sheriff, the police chief, the district attorney, and again, business owners and people who care about the community. It's a pretty diverse board of people, both by profession and by ethnicity. I mean, it's a pretty beautiful room when you're in there and we're talking about what's going on. But as Dr. Perry said a second ago, this work we're not promising, hey, overnight, we just started this yesterday and by tomorrow we'll have it figured out. But what often happens is someone will quote a study and try to use the analyses here, but it doesn't have a perspective about Baton Rouge. I think we'll all agree there is no other place like Baton Rouge.
Fortunately and unfortunately. All right, so back to Dr. Perry. All right, so you've given us an overview. Let's dig a little bit deeper.
Okay.
What else are you guys doing, and what can we being someone who is interested in this program, interested in the program, how can we become a little bit more involved and in tune with what's going on?
One way is just like this, informing the community. It's not easy going out and getting people to say, hey, come into a focus group. You have to build that trust. They have to understand what you're doing. Another component of this that we did not talk about is the police department. One of the things that the criminal justice department will be working on is some of those cultural competencies trainings with the police department. So that's another thing, is just making sure we educate people on that as well. So yes, this is a start for some of the work that is very influential for Southern University's piece. It's preparing the community, letting them know, hey, we're coming We have the same vision. We want to see change. And not only that, we're going to be collaborating with the community. We're going to be doing workshops with the community and police. The community must see the police side, and the police must see the community side.
Absolutely.
So this is going to be a question that's kind of a tough one.
Bring it.
So no, and it's one that I think a lot about. When I hear the word change, I know what my expectations are from my side of the street. When someone else says change, say they're a law enforcement officer, that can mean a lot of different things. Who is, before we get Dr. Blanchard in here, who decides, when you say change, Doctor, who decides what that change is and what that change looks like?
Well, for us, we want to see lower a reduction in crime. We want to see police-community relationships. We want to see trust. We want to see where we have police on the ground, because one major component I don't think that Clay mentioned is that this is not just research. We are trying to implement policy.
Right.
Influence
Policies.
policy.
And so that's another thing, a measurement for change. So those are some of the things that we're looking for to measure changes within this program.
That is such a home run answer, because it is the specific definition of the opposite of what people think they see right now,
Right.
which is change. So if anybody was wondering what it is and what it looks like, Doc just told you.
So we're going to invite LSU to come in. Don't go anywhere, Doc. Okay. Dr. Blanchard, come on in. We're going to share a mic, and then Clay, I'll scoot
Want
up.
me to slide out of the way?
No. I'm going to scoot over because nobody really wants to see me. Nobody wants to see me. Okay, so we've got the rest of this segment, and then we're going to keep you guys around for part of the second segment. Okay, what is LSU? First of all, Dr. Blanchard, welcome to the show. I've heard nothing but good things. I mean, I don't know if your reputation is as good as everybody says it is, but it sounds like you've got somebody on the payroll.
Now I'm terrified.
So, okay, so what is LSU's role in this?
So LSU's role is to approach the research in a very similar way that Southern's approaching the research, but we're focusing exclusively on the workforce development side of things, right? So where our colleagues and counterparts at Southern are addressing the community and the readiness of the community to accept that change, we are focusing on the criminal justice and the law enforcement workforce to implement changes and policies that can help their betterment, right? I'm sorry, I'm kind of tall.
Nothing to be sorry about.
The focus of our work at the Leadership Development Institute it's a three-pronged approach. We surround our work with the study of talent and leadership development, so bringing your best self to the work every day.
Right.
We also focus exclusively almost on burnout and turnover and the indicators of those in the service-oriented workforces, and then mental health and wellness of employees. And so when you intertwine those three, you come up with what the work is that we do at the Leadership
So as an
Development
attorney,
Institute.
I need to sign up for this service-oriented man. So, okay, I have been saying for years that everything is connected, right? Education, jobs, criminal justice. And I've also been saying for years, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I've also been saying for years is we can resolve criminal cases all day long. But if we set people up for success, one thing happens. And if we set people up for failure, another thing's happen. Job placement is a huge component of this, right? I have clients that go into DOC and they get out and they're reformed, they're changed, whatever word you want to use. And the common thing I hear is, man, it's tough getting a job. It's tough getting a job as a convicted felon. And then there's industries that are trying to bridge that gap, right? I've had Turner on before. I've had B1 Bank talk to me about this. Talk to me a little bit about that bridging. That's, again, Clay's masterful word. Bridging that gap in terms of this, because it looks like you're working on the front end, helping people get better jobs,
Right.
From the interview process, from the maintaining your job process, which, hey, sometimes keeping a job is a tough thing. I'm not going to name any names around here, but talk to me about the back end, about so we've got this criminal justice system that does what it does, and then we work people through the process. What happens to them on the back end?
It goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. When we look at our society, every institution is affected in some kind of way, and we're all tied together. When we talk about policy, we're also talking about some of those changes leading up to policies. We go into communities say they need jobs. Well, that's one thing we have to focus on when we're talking about our community. Hey, we have to go to our officials and say, look, the community needs this. The community needs, to be honest, we already know this, right?
Right.
So this is nothing new. We know that if you have a high influx of poverty, you're going to have a high influx of crime. So it's nothing new. So it's about doing the work. And so that's kind of one of the things that I'm so excited about with the foundation is that they see that same vision.
So I'm going to ask another tough question because I've got you guys here.
It's okay.
But in fairness to you guys, I had the mayor on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked her tough questions too.
Right.
All right. So talk to me about the big, because I'm all about obstacles. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. Clay, if you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's a little stoic, but the obstacle is the way. What are the obstacles that you guys are seeing in your work, and what are the obstacles that you can use as levers to pivot and make positive change? Tough question, right? Tough question.
It is tough if I can take a
Go for
stab
it.
at it, though.
Go for it, Doc.
My biggest obstacle, and this is the professional as well as the personal obstacle, is the gross misconception that if you support vocally and with your funding and with your resources, if you support Black lives, then that has to somehow mean you don't support law enforcement.
Right.
And that is just grossly false. It's grossly false. And so what this work does, and what this foundation does, and what this organization does, is to take Clay's famous word now, bridge that gap in understanding and saying that those two things can happen simultaneously. And bringing awareness to the fact that they can happen simultaneously is probably the number one obstacle we have, but it's also the number one opportunity we have to let the community know, yes, we support you, to let law enforcement know,
Right.
yes, we support you, and we can do that at the same time.
Blue and black make up the community, right? Yeah. So, all right, well, I like that. And look, people get so riled up. Mm-hmm. And then when you try to explain to them what's going on, sometimes they're receptive of it and sometimes they're not. We've got about 2 minutes left in this segment, ladies and Clay. Dr. Perry, I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer that question too. What do you think is one of the big obstacles?
I think one of the big obstacles that I've seen is that a lot of times when trying to do this type of work, we bring outsiders in. This method that we're using is we're going to be using people who are already doing the work. But one of the things that I like, that I think is kind of a challenge, is that we're using more of a micro level of analysis in order to work from the bottom up. And so we're going to have to call on some key influencers. These are people who have been working the community but kind of been overlooked.
Like
right?
Clay Young.
Right.
He's not overlooked.
And they know exactly what's going on in their community. They're able to mobilize people, but gaining that trust. That's one of the biggest obstacles. I don't think it's impossible because we've done it before, but just making sure we're able to get the trust, especially putting the community in the same room with the police officers and making sure we're bringing about change in that capacity.
So I don't want you guys going anywhere. Stick around. We're going to take our first break. Before we do, though, Brian, if you want to get more information about the Geaux Rouge Show, you can go to www.geauxrouge.com. Or you can watch on demand we have a channel, a YouTube channel. We're on demand, baby. Or you can go to Talk 107.3's website. So stick around. We're going to come right back. We're talking to some wonderful folks making big changes in the community from a policy, bridge building standpoint. The Geaux Rouge Show will be right back. All right. So we're still on Facebook Live, guys. Wave everybody to Facebook Live. So I didn't have a chance to tell you because I was late today. I was in court. I have a day job. So this is running Facebook Live on Talk 107.3's Facebook Live. I would encourage you to share it. Mm-hmm. I don't really know the difference between a watch party versus a share, although a watch party sounds sexy. I don't really know if there's a difference.
There's a difference. The watch party is like we're live and people are actually watching it at that time with us.
No pressure there.
Okay, so I've got to ask Doc. I say Doc. Dr. Blanchard, you've got these index cards. I'm curious about them. What are they?
I'm going to show them to you because they're pretty difficult to convey to the radio, right?
Okay.
But we're going to talk about the dispositions of leadership here in a minute, because our focus is not on making sure that we can take a deputy and turn him into a sergeant, or a sergeant and turn him into a corporal, or anything like that. What we talk about is the capacity of each individual to lead, and what are those indicators. And this is called LADDER. It's the Leadership Alphabet of Disposition, Development, Engagement, and Reflection.
That's a good acronym there.
Thank you.
That's a solid acronym.
Well, wait, and you want to know, like, so the symbolism of a ladder is balance, right? Really
Right.
cool. Also, it's alphabetical, so that's why it's a leadership alphabet.
Oh, my
right?
goodness.
But we I know it's quirky.
How do I get myself a copy of these?
I will leave these for you if you
Oh,
like.
wonderful.
But this is, I'm going to try my best. It sometimes does not convey well, but I'm going to try my best to make our listeners visualize what this looks like. You might even want to share some of it on your page, but this is what we're creating for law enforcement. So
Good.
we've created one for K-12 teachers. It's called Ed Ladder or Teach Ladder. That was the first one we've created, and then we created one for small businesses. You mentioned B1 Bank; they were in our focus group. We created one for small business, and it's
You
called
need to
Corporate
create-
Ladder.
You need to create one for lawyers. We need this. So one of your good colleagues, Lacey.
Cherry, she was here about 3 weeks ago, right?
She's going to be here next week with Meredith Eichert, and they're going to take over the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be talking about, I think, vulnerability and leadership and all these wonderful things. The older I get, the more I'm getting interested in this kind of stuff. I do a lot of, and we're just taking a break right now, but I do a lot of jury work. And some of the same cognitive psychology skills that I use in marketing and PR is the same kind of stuff you use in jury work. Decision making, why people make decision making. Clay doesn't know this, but I've done focus groups on why people are going to decide certain things on certain cases with certain facts.
And that's important in jury selection.
Oh, when you get, but it's creating that safe space of honesty that is and you guys are research people, so you guys know it's that divide between what do I think they want to hear and what do I really feel. And in the social media world, I say this all the time to law students and others. In the social media world, there's what do I want the world to perceive of me and who am I really, and then what's the middle ground. So it's very interesting to me. All right, so we're going to go into the second half. We're going to let you ladies stick around for a little bit, talk a little bit about leadership. Then we're going to get Judge in the house and wrap this thing up. Judge, how much time do you want? You want 10 minutes? Is that good? That's fine.
Did you not make it, or I didn't see it?
I like it. I like it. Criminal Justice Department, real. Oh yeah.
One
So
already done with law enforcement. The one we're gonna do on this Thursday with prosecutors.
so Captain Frederick Thomas was in my leadership Baton Rouge class.
Is that right?
Yes. So, and I got to that leadership Baton Rouge class. I actually guest lectured about social justice reform from both sides. So I was past president of the Louisiana Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers the year that we did the unanimous jury. My only claim to fame in life, besides having a cute little 5-year-old, which I only co-made, my only claim to fame in life is I was the impetus of that constitutional amendment. I was the president, and my lobbyist said, what do you want to do this session? And I said, I want a constitutional amendment that would in effect cause there to need to be unanimous juries. Long story made short, they all looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, no, we need to be focused on, they're like, we need to be focused on death penalty work. And I'm like, no, that's not going to unify us. Right. So as a litigator, this is the interesting thing. The same year that we passed the constitutional amendment, I tried 2 jury trials. One was a murder case, one was a terrible rape case, both non-unanimous. And in the Ramos decision, I'm going to have to retry both of them, or at least one of them.
Right.
So all because I was able to convince one individual to essentially agree with me. So anyways, Brian, ready when you are, baby. Sorry, Brian. These are so awesome.
We'll just look. You might want to check that out too, because this is where the balance part comes in. I'm seeing.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Geaux Rouge radio show, episode 48. We're almost at the 1 year mark, Brian. We're almost at the 1 year mark. I'm going to get a cake. Okay, maybe not a cake. Maybe a pizza. Maybe some sliders. I don't know. This is Franz Borchardt. If you're listening on Facebook Live or you're listening on Talk 107.3, welcome back. Brian Haldane's behind Master Controls. In the studio, we have Clay Young, Dr. Leslie Blanchard, and then, of course, Dr. Kristie Perry. We're talking today in this segment more about the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation. We're going to talk to you ladies a little bit more. Then we're going to switch out and have I hear we have somebody from the BRPD here. I hear we have Gino. He's kind of a big thing. And then we have Judge Hunter King, and also we'll round out the show with that. Before we do that, though, we need to thank our sponsors. We have NAI, Ladder and Bloom, commercial real estate. These guys are actually sponsoring a commercial real estate podcast that I am actually hosting. It's kind of amusing because I know very little to nothing about commercial real estate, but I get to talk as if I know very little to nothing about it. So the Smith Shanklin Sosa Law Firm, personal injury go-to law firm, Breck Parks, Sullivan Steakhouse. Brian, Sullivan Steakhouse, your go-to neighborhood steak restaurant. Man, oh man, is that food good. Their appetizers, happy hour specials, awesome. The Borchardt Law Firm, Louisiana Tech Park, and last but not least, La Divina Italian Cafe, serving select wines, ice-cold beer, plus their exclusive, I'm going to try not to struggle through this, sorbet mimosa. They have a sorbet, right? Sorbet mimosa. All right, so ladies, gentlemen, back to where we were talking about. I want to talk about leadership development for a second. I have been blessed, both when I was a public defender, when I was a prosecutor, as well as a overly involved human being. I have been blessed to go through some leadership training. I went through the Baton Rouge Leadership Academy. I went through the Barton Leadership through Forum 225. I did the Business Reports Leadership Academy. I like learning how to be a better leader. Besides, of course, the fact that it's a good networking thing for me, for what I do for a living. But I like gaining leadership because I find that I use it in every facet of my life, whether it's how to deal with simple problems at a coffee shop or complex. How do I negotiate better? How do I bring a team together? How do I unify a jury? So let's talk about leadership's role in this program that you guys are doing.
Okay. Well, the Leadership Development Institute is, I always say when I introduce our work to people that we're a big amalgamation of buzzwords, right? So we have leadership, we have development, and we have institute. When we talk about leadership, it means different things to different people, but we define it as the capacity within each person to lead others, right? Or the capacity within each person to get others to follow you. So we're not creating bosses.
Right.
We're not creating positional leaders.
Right.
We're creating that capacity within each other people and developing it. Also development. A lot of times the audiences we speak to hear quote unquote professional development and their eyes slowly roll back in their heads. They're like, oh gosh, this is another, workshop that I'm going to have to sit through and then my life will not change at all. And that's not what we mean by development. We mean the development of the capacity within each individual. So
right.
what leadership development looks like for you is going to look different than what it would look like for Kristie or what it would look like for Clay. It's very diagnostic and personalized.
Right.
And then our institute is within the College of Human Sciences and Education at LSU, whose motto is to improve the quality of life along the lifespan. And so we're hoping that we reflect the mission of our college and our institute in doing our work. What sets our Leadership Institute apart from most leadership programs, many of which you just named, is that we focus exclusively on the human sciences and services industries.
Okay.
So there are lots of leadership programs for business, industry, and for-profit institutions, right? Corporate America. Those folks get wonderful opportunities at leadership development, but their bottom line metric in most cases is profit. Right? So when your bottom line metric is profit, you're motivated differently to behave differently than when your bottom line metric is community development.
Say like being the best version of yourself.
Exactly.
To help not only others, but develop yourself, like something like that.
Something like that,
personal
right?
Personal growth, not monetarily based. I like this. Yeah.
Good. Right. Well, and again, those service-oriented industries include K-12 education, right?
Right.
No one goes into the field of education to get rich. Unless they're really, really misinformed.
Until they become consultants.
Well, okay, but unless they're really misinformed,
Right.
they go into it. They're motivated by different factors. They
Right.
want to serve. They want
Right.
to serve others. Same with police and criminal justice. They're not motivated by this exorbitant salary. They're motivated by the fact that they want to protect and serve their communities, right? And so when those are the motivators and the metrics of success are measured differently, then we need to develop those leaders differently, and that's what our work does.
So somebody asked me on a weekly basis, do I win a lot as a defense attorney? And I have to instruct them, teach them that my definition of winning is not what you might think it is. I do a lot of social engineering that nobody ever knows about. If I get someone off of their addictive substance of choice, that's a win.
Yes.
If I get someone a resolution that doesn't mean jail time, that might be a win for that person. If I'm able to keep their job because they're not a convicted felon. So I'm all about retuning my perspective on a daily basis. And it sounds like that's kind of, you guys are doing some great stuff. Okay, so before I let you go, and before we switch out with some great additional guests, I mean, they're not going to be as good as you ladies, but no big deal. If I wanted to get more information about your program, Clay, or either one of Leadership Institute or what you're doing, where would I go?
So the website that is up is brcollab.com.
Like it.
And in terms of the research work that the universities are doing, you're hearing an overview now. The cake is not, the batter isn't in the oven yet, right? So they're just telling you what's coming.
Right.
So from this standpoint, from now to hopefully this time next year or the beginning of 22, then we'll see this play out in the community when they present it.
It sounds like you guys have a good recipe, though, and you can't make a good cake without the good recipe. So at least that, and it makes sense, right? You got, and you're backing it up with research. You're telling people this is what we think change is, and it's policy. So I want you ladies to stick around, and we're going to do some photos and whatnot afterwards. But stick around. We're going to swap you guys out. We have BRPD's finest, and then we have a judge / criminal justice component of this. So we're going to welcome those guys in. Y'all just swap them out. So Clay, tell me a little bit about Judge King's and Gino's role in the program. Gino would get off the phone and come play with us.
Well, Judge C. Hunter King is obviously, a part of what's being done at Southern, and
right.
much like Dr. Perry, he'll have a role in that. And then, of course, Gino, being with BRPD and connected across all the agencies, lends his perspective. I do want to make one point a little more clear.
Sure.
That in addition to the research that we're doing with the two universities, we're raising funds to also support these agencies in capacities that we can. We had our board meeting last week, heard a request from an agency. We're not going to put that out right now, but that they need some equipment.
Right.
And it's going through the process now so that we can determine at what level we can support them. But that's a big part of this too.
Okay.
So people will be hearing about fundraisers and things that we're doing. I mean, we have a pretty big amount to start with, but money just goes. And so when you're spending on something like
it
this,
doesn't it?
Goes. So that's a part of this as well.
I'm really good at spending, not as good at earning, but that's another conversation for another episode. All right, so Judge King, welcome into the studio.
Thank you.
What is your role in this wonderful program?
Well, under the Nelson Mandela College, there are two departments.
Okay.
There's the Sociology department, and that's headed by Dr. Perry, and then there's the Criminal Justice department.
Okay.
I am participating because I am an associate professor with the Criminal Justice Department at Southern University here in Baton Rouge. So our role is, of course, community outreach,
right?
But also to then turn around and have some, classes with sensitivity training, culture diversity, racial justice. How do we go about getting best practices so that real policy, just like with the governor having his task force in terms of how do we change the culture in terms of, and you being a member of the bar, you understand not all the time does Tennessee versus Garner has to be implemented in terms of use of deadly force.
Correct.
We can go about, that's why we have tasers. Tasers is not considered, deadly force. So, I think I woke up this morning And the first thing I saw on the news, I don't remember what state it was, gentleman with a knife, police shoots, as opposed to tasing him. We don't know if there was a mental health issue there. We don't know what the situation was. But obviously the family called for assistance with law enforcement. They didn't expect their loved ones to get shot and killed based on the fact that he was not, in fact, putting, and that's a question, you being a member of the bar understanding is questionable. Was the law enforcement officers really at life in jeopardy or not? You know, when a person has a knife and you're not within arm reach of an individual to really hurt them. So criminal justice department has a significant role to try to change best practices and in terms of educating, recruits who becomes a member of law enforcement, the dean, whose name is Damian Ejigari, and myself and the former chairman of the board, we used to teach at state police so that we can institute and let them law enforcement, particularly young law enforcement officers, understand what are the constitutional concerns. I'm a big constitutional buff because
I'm a fan of the Constitution too.
I'm a fan of the Constitution.
Did we just become best friends?
I mean, I teach it in my classes. I say, hey, you got to first start with Article 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at the news and you see president, you see the legislative branch of government and the judicial branch of government, how does it all fare out? It's called a balancing of power.
So just to give clarity for those who are listening, the judge is talking about the Walter Wallace Jr. shooting. It happened in Philadelphia. One of the things that and nobody, as much as I toot my own horn, guys, I teach law enforcement. I teach prosecutors. I've taught the AG's office. I've taught the DA's office here, seminars. And I do it, one, because I want to be able to say I teach the other side. And the other reason is because I really do want everybody doing best practices. And the thing that I have to explain to baby lawyers, I have to explain it to everybody, my side, all sides, is just because you can do something does not mean it's the best practice.
That's right.
And getting people to think, how will this look later? How will I explain my actions later is a tough thing sometimes when we're so engrossed of, well, this is how I can do it. And because I can do it this way, I'm going to do it this way. You're like, So, okay. So BRPD is here. Talk to me about, since Gino is a very important person. Gino is a very important person. He is actually in the studio. He's just handling some business. Right. So talk to me how you guys integrate in law enforcement into this equation, right?
They're already there.
Right.
There is no post integration. They're at the table as this began.
Okay, good.
When we talked through what the research was going to be, law enforcement was at the table to help kind of not necessarily shape direction, but to lend perspective, because when the universities go out into the field to do this, they will be unencumbered by anyone else.
Right.
And then the foundation's board will see what's coming on. But again, having the conversation between academicians and law enforcement people is so important. And it's so tough now because the last thing people often want to do is listen.
Right.
It's really difficult to learn and understand if you don't listen.
So another topic for another episode, and Clay, I'm going to have you back, is at some point in society, we got to this juncture to where if I disagree with you, it's no longer, hey, I just disagree with you. It's now, I disagree with you, and I'm going to burn your house down, and I'm going to and I'm going to troll you and destroy you, and all these things, and you're just like, no, I just disagree with you.
Yeah,
it's okay.
They missed the term of we're able to agree to disagree.
Right.
So I think those are anomalies. And I think in any kind of anomalous activity will draw people's attention.
Right.
And I do think most people will just disagree or stay away from someone they don't agree with. I don't think the vast majority of people fall into the category. And listen, you can graduate that line of thinking to what we're talking about. There are hundreds of thousands of interactions between police officers and citizens every day that either don't end up violent or someone losing their life.
And you never know about them because they go perfectly correct.
And the vast majority of people who live in poor communities are not criminals.
Right.
They're not lawbreakers. They're not people, but anything that pops up out of those areas, and I won't pick a neighborhood because I hate when people do that, it all of a sudden becomes everybody over there is like this, right? And so that's what the hardest thing about this for us, is to maintain balance all the way through the process.
So how do you do that? How do you maintain balance throughout the process?
Well, one of the things is Police Athletic League. I know it happened in New Orleans for a little bit when NORD went by the wayside, but when you have law enforcement officers interacting with young people, now all of a sudden we're not intimidated. The young person is not intimidated because they see Sergeant McNeely with a uniform, and it's like, oh man, he's getting ready to harass me or profile me, because now Sergeant McNeely was my coach, my basketball coach, and my baseball coach. So the idea is to eliminate and create more trust from law enforcement to community, so that you can understand the community and the community can understand the roles of law enforcement.
So we're going to welcome in Gino, Officer McNeely, if you will. Yes. How are you doing?
Fine.
You're not. I'm sorry. I was going to say Sergeant. Give me a second, man. Brian Haldane's correcting me.
Women getting you.
So I call you Gino.
Yes.
Because we're on a first name basis.
Yes.
You are not a stranger to the Talk 107.3 studio, and you are doing a phenomenal job. And I've told him this privately, and I'll say it publicly. I think you're doing a good job with getting messages out from the BRPD about what you guys are about and what you're not about. Talk to me a little bit about your role in this process. I've heard your role from their perspective. I want to hear your role from your perspective.
Well, first of all, we're happy to have the foundation.
Sure.
And we're happy to be a part of it, because it allows all law enforcement to have an avenue in which we can go and ask for monies to provide equipment for our department. So Baton Rouge Police Department, Sheriff Department, a constable office, the coroner can ask for different items that we may need. So now there's a DA office. That's right, DA office.
What is the number one asked for item of equipment?
Well, it's going to vary.
Right.
We haven't put a dollar amount or an item up yet. But the listed agencies, the DA office with Truce and all the other agencies, going to come to the foundation and ask for monies or allow the foundation to buy those items for us, that we can better service the community and do our job. So we're using that platform to be able to present certain ideas and items that we may need. So we're glad to be able to have that access, or that platform in which we can go to the business leaders in the community and reach out to the universities and ask them for assistance in the technology that we may need, the equipment that we may need, and policy changes that we may feel that would be beneficial to law enforcement in reaching out to the community, and also having the community come to us for things that they may need. So it's a platform that we can use to better service the community in getting those assets.
So I want to change gears a little bit, fellas. We got about 6 minutes left, and this is one of those tough questions that I feel I'm in a safe place to ask, and then also I want to talk about it. One of the issues I have observed with when we start talking about change, whatever change means, whatever facet, it becomes polarized, it becomes political, and it sounds to me that you guys aren't really. That's not what this is about, right? This is about something else. So how do you? I guess what I'm asking, and I'll start with you, Clay. How do you deal with the tendency, the sometimes political tendency to take a good idea and make it into something political? How do you guys deal with that?
So, I chair the board.
Right.
It's not about me.
Right.
The universities are at the table. It's not about them. The agencies represented by the chief, the sheriff, the district attorney, the constable, the coroner. It's not about them. So as long as the perspective is outcome-based, then you're fine. And so in the room, if we can maintain that energy, it will osmosis out to the community. The first thing we did when we had a press conference was have the partners there and the optics. If you couldn't hear what we were saying, if you see the group, it sends the message.
Yeah.
So we're not only saying let's support these agencies, these law enforcement agencies, by raising money to get them equipment and technology. We're also saying let's do something to impact the people in the community. Balance. Now, egos will not get in the way as long as the direction, the vision, the outcome is clear.
Right.
And like I said, it's not about us, because in 50 years, what the hell difference does it make if we're not successful?
Correct. So I have a sticky note on my desk, and Brian knows this. I have a sticky note on my desk that says, literally, it's not about you. Which, as a lawyer, that's a tough concept. It's because everything's always about me. Right? So I like everything I'm hearing. Guys, again, Clay, where do I go to get more information? That website, again, is
brcollab.com.
In our closing 2 minutes, guys, what do we need to talk about that we haven't talked about so far?
Well, one of the things I'd like to say is we need a community to help with our community outreach. We need pastors, we need churches, we need fraternity organizations, we need social organizations. We need individuals that's going to step up and give us some real talk. You know, it's one of the things the criminal justice department has been engaged in this semester, with real talk with law enforcement and real talk with prosecutors. So it's about saving lives.
Right.
So if you can contact the Nelson Mandela College, okay, and I think that number is 225-771 5732. If you would like your organization to participate, you know, in the research from the outreach, because we need the community. We can't do it by ourselves. It's about saving children and lives.
So before I let Dr. Blanchard tell us how to get involved on her end, I'll tell you that one of the funniest things I hear is, man, you're a defense attorney. You don't want crime to stop. And I'm like, no, actually, I live in the city, and I do want crime to stop. All right, Doc, got a minute left. If people want to get more information, or if there's one thing we need to know that we haven't talked about already, 30 seconds, what is it?
Sure. Well, you can reach out for more information to the Leadership Development Institute at www.lsu.edu/LDI. And we're excited about creating this tool and this instrument that is created by Baton Rouge criminal justice and law enforcement to benefit Baton Rouge law enforcement and criminal justice. And so therefore, it's a really circular and really, really fitting thing.
All right. So you stick around, because we're going to go Facebook Live on this, because we're out of time. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, guys. I think this is the most guests we've had simultaneously in the studio. Don't tell Gary and T Broadcasting we had this many people in the studio, Brian. You'll probably get in trouble, not me. So anyways, Franz Borkart, Brian Haldane, all these wonderful folks. Have a great week. Stick around Facebook Live for a minute. All right, we're still on Facebook Live. Now, because I didn't want you not to get to say, like, the one important thing that you wanted to say. Tell them what you were going to say.
I'm really excited about the project. I'm glad that Southern University is doing the community and research component. Our sociology department, Center for Social Research, and working with the criminal justice program. I love the collaboration with LSU. I think we're going to make some phenomenal changes, and hopefully be able to use this as a model for changes other places.
So Facebook, if you're listening out here, please do us all a favor. Share this episode so that we can get the word out. Clay Young, by the way, special thanks to Clay Young for coming in. Clay wears a lot of hats. I don't know if he has a Geaux Rouge hat or not, but Clay wears a lot of hats. And you definitely need to also check out the Clay Young Show, right? That's on Talk 107.3, isn't it, Brian?
Part of the Saturdays on Demand lineup every Saturday night here at Talk 103. Also available at podcast225.com.
It's like I knew that, and I set it up. So from us to you, y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And then before we go, let's take a photo, and then I've got some hats downstairs.